I closed the journal. I thought the whole thing was completely insane. I mean, a secret world beneath a mining town. However, on some level, I believed him. And knowing my father, Professor Rodric Hillendale, believed him also. I wonder how he came to possess this journal. A hand-me-down, maybe? Or did he find it while helping Grandma clean out the attic of their small cottage home in Carmine, Texas? Most likely the second explanation. I know if Grandma had read Jedediah's journal, she would have thrown it in the fire, saying it was such filth. It would not surprise me if this is what got my father into exploration and archaeology. I must admit, after reading Jedediah's tale, I'm almost tempted to go find Minotan mine myself, not only to confirm my ancestor and my father's findings, so I can maybe prove they're not crazy after all. If something mysterious caused the death of 2 of your family members, would you not want to know the truth behind it, even if it's horrifying? I found myself looking further into my father's notes. I was now curious. I found more writings and scribbles and theories, including a sketch he did of the gigantic creature. Terrifying just looking at that. I could not imagine the terror of looking at that thing for real. This was the mighty Rawlurah. Even though just a drawing, I could feel the energy my father sketched, like a piece of that terror attached to the drawing, feeding some hidden desire to see this thing for myself. Not in a drawing, or my nightmares. Still, somewhere in the back of my mind, I wondered why my father's colleagues would be interested in this. My father was a serious archaeologist. He had uncovered treasures of ancient Egypt, helped uncover wonders of the Mayans. He was a well-respected man of his field. This search for Rawlurah seemed to be nothing more than a family obsession. I would say that I, too, am becoming obsessed. Well, maybe I am. The more I went through my father's research, the more I realized I have seen most of it while I was still a child. He must have been young when he went on his journey. I soon uncovered something in my father's own journal. Perhaps this would tell me what I need to know, whether or not my father really did venture into that mine, or whether he found those hieroglyphs somewhere else. My assumption was confirmed as I began reading his journey. His journey began August 12, 1980, about 6 months before I was born. Dear Log, today's the day I finally begin my search for the old Minotan mine. My wife Lou is worried for me, says this could be dangerous. No team or special equipment, but this is something I had to do. No fame, no fortune, no glory. I had studied every ounce of my great-grandfather's journal, Jedediah Hillendale, since I found it when I was 10 years old. All the explorations, the digs, everything I've done until now was in preparation for this journey. I always knew I would have to take. Is it possible I am just blindly listening to the rambles of a dying lunatic? Yes, maybe. Still, something deep inside me is telling me there is more to this story. Either way, I will discover the truth to all this. My great-grandfather died young, insane and alone, when he should have been honored as a hero who saved his family and possibly has made the most important discovery in history. This will not go like it did when my great-grandfather found that world. I have had training in exploration. I am armed. I have a camera. And I'm not alone. I got a local of the town with me. His name is Edgar McCormick. He is an interesting person. Doesn't say much, I'm afraid. I was surprised when he volunteered to come with me. I expressed to him there was no money or fame in this, and this could be extremely dangerous. Still, he expressed enthusiasm and joined me anyway. The town was no longer known as Minotan. It has been renamed Stonyville and built into a suburban town. You'd hardly know it was the same town. That's progress, I suppose. We were put up in a motel, the Minotan Inn, the only building that still looks like something built from that era. It used to be the town hall, but has been renovated into a motel. Quite clever, I thought. Needless to say, I was happy, just being here. When nightfall arrived, we headed to what was named the Stonyville Parklands. Edgar showed me the way to the old mine, still perfectly preserved. Let me tell you, that was a sight. Some of the old mining equipment still there, the mine still sealed shut. That was a problem. I almost thought my journey had ended before it begun. Edgar obviously could tell I was a little disappointed, for he told me to relax, there's another way in. We moved through some heavy bush until we came at another tunnel, on the far left side of the mountain. As I stared, I couldn't see anything but darkness. I could already feel something overwhelming, like something was watching me. I looked around and saw no one was around, just me and Edgar. Part of me started to think perhaps this is a bad idea. Maybe I should turn back and heed my great-grandfather's warning. I could have turned back. Nothing would have stopped me. Could just tell Edgar we could pick this up in the morning. But I didn't say anything. As scared as I was, going in, the urge to venture in was just too great. Edgar walked in first. I hesitated when I heard what sounded to me like... it was too hard to make out. All I felt was creeped out. Sounded to me like chanting. It was mesmerizing. I wanted to turn back, but every time I told my mind to leave, my body ventured further in this tunnel. The tunnel itself wasn't special. Obviously, man had dug it. Perhaps people were curious about the contents of or just teenagers trying to find a place to smoke their cigarettes in peace. Or perhaps something called them here. Just like my great-grandfather. With our flashlights out, we could see where we were going. We eventually found some railing tracks. We had found the old mine. We looked around for a while, trying to find the path to the ancient tunnel described by Jedediah in his journal. I found an old mining cart that had a lantern inside. Lucky I had my lighter, because the lantern was still in working order. That was good, that meant I could preserve power in the flashlight. I went to tell Edgar, however, I had lost track of him. Had he wandered off or chickened out? I wouldn't blame him if he had chickened out, because what was in this mine would make any sane person run. So what does that say about me? The mine was full of skeletons, quite possibly from the Native Americans' attack on this mine. I chose to keep moving forward. As I moved along the mining tunnels, I began hearing that chanting again. It wasn't what my great-grandfather had described in his journal. No, it sounded like a bunch of voices chanting the same thing. I decided to follow that sound as it got louder. I knew I was on the right path somehow, some way. I knew this would take me where I was going. What they were saying, I couldn't understand. It's no dialect I've ever heard. Eventually I found a big pit and some surrounding hieroglyphics. I took some pictures. Quickly, I saw some that resembled the ones referenced in Jedediah's journal, including one of the monsters he described as Rawlurah. Perhaps this really was the pit that swallowed up Jedediah. I couldn't see the bottom, only blackness. I just knew in my heart this was the right pit. I could hear the chanting. It was coming from down there, louder, clearer, and creepier. Sound like an army down there. I placed my camera down and examined the pit closer, trying to make out the words to this chant or incantation. Before I could think about what I was going to do next, I felt a sudden throbbing pain across the back of my head and slipped into unconsciousness. In a dark place like this kind of felt like being consumed. I woke up. I'm not sure how long I was out. My watch was gone, along with my flashlight and sidearm. As for my camera, I left it up there. Hopefully, they'll stay preserved so I can once and for all prove Jedediah was right, that this city does exist, and so do the monsters that inhabit it. So I soldiered on. Not that I had a choice. As I moved along, I could tell this was the same tunnel Jedediah found himself in. The architecture was truly amazing, and the hieroglyphs, honestly, an archaeologist's dream. This truly was the discovery of a lifetime, but at the same time the discovery comes with a terrifying realization. My great-grandfather was right. He wasn't insane. If the tunnel is real, so is the city, and that means so is the monster he saw. I wish I could turn back. It was already too late. Not even Jedediah could turn back. All I could do was keep moving forward. Suddenly I heard a different voice, a voice more foul, like a demon, one of those horror movies. This must be the voice Jedediah described, the voice of Rawlurah. I also remembered what Jedediah said in his journal, that Rawlurah's voice exists in the mind. Trying to block out the sound by covering my ears is useless. I thought I'd be better prepared for it, but I was wrong. The voice of Rawlurah is insane, and those words, no human could comprehend them. Eventually I came across the end of the tunnel to the ancient city. It was crazy seeing this for myself. Everything Jedediah said was true. I wish at the time I could have enjoyed the significance of that. However, the overwhelming darkness, the feeling of dread in the air, like evil itself, came down on me like a ton of bricks. The more I ventured into the city, the worse it got. Those creepy mountains, that almost pitch-black sky, that moon. Reading a description is nothing compared to the real experience of being here. Seeing it for yourself. Suddenly, I heard a screeching noise that was encountered by the creatures that live here, the bat-faced humanoid-looking things. I'm not sure how many of them there were. I was terrified beyond the need for rational thought. The only thing I could think of was to tear off a bit of my shirt, wrap it around a nearby stick, and lighting it with my lighter. I waved it around, and to my surprise, I was able to scare most of them off. They don't like the fire. The last remaining creature I incinerated when the torch set fire to him. It was almost unbearable to witness, and that final agonizing scream again. Like nails on a chalkboard, my ears bled. All I could think to do now was keep moving forward, through the place. It was like a maze. I had no idea where I was going. I found myself walking down what looked like to be a street, surrounded by ancient-looking buildings. I wasn't alone. No matter where I went, I felt like I was being watched. The reality was, danger could be lurking behind every corner. I don't think this is the road Jedediah took. I saw no sign of those catacombs. I heard a faint sound in the distance. The more I moved towards the center of this ancient city, the more I realized it was that chanting. I followed it until I came to a long stretch. No more buildings. Just a long stone floor. I stepped on it and began walking. I was determined to make it through no matter what, to see this through to the bitter end. What exactly is Rawlurah? What is this place? I must have these answers. The floor stretched to another part of the city. I soon saw something closing in the distance. As I walked, the closer I got, I realized it was a statue. A statue of something I recognized. A giant monster overlooking a shrine. The lion mane hair. The four spider-like legs. The pitch-black face with the Y mark. The human-like body. Those countless tails. I was mesmerized by the statue of Rawlurah. It had some form of writing on the shrine. I can't make it out. Suddenly, something came over me, like something took my mind and said these words. To this day, still terrifies me.
Rawlurah, devourer of moons, the oncoming darkness, god of fear. Those mortals he gazes upon shall be overcome by unspeakable fear and horror for all eternity. Through their fear his darkness will spread. Upon his return the world will be dead.
I finally had control of myself again. I was terrified. I wanted to get out of here. I don't care how. My wife was right. I never should have come. I should have stayed with her. I wasn't just terrified of this place, or risking the wrath of Rawlurah. I was afraid I'd never see my beautiful wife ever again, and our soon-to-be-born child. And if I weren't careful, I could doom the earth and destroy everything. I was a little dazed from the experience of the Rawlurah translation. As I came to, I suddenly realized I was surrounded by a bunch of people in cloaks. They grabbed me and moved me up. No matter how much I struggled, I couldn't get free, but I realized where they were taking me. Up the mountain to the shrine. The same shrine Jedediah encountered the creature. They dragged me to the center of the shrine and forced me to my knees. Then I suddenly heard a familiar voice, telling them not to be so rough with me. The cloaked man in front of me unveiled his hood. I was shocked. It was Edgar. It was he who knocked me over the head, and revealed to me he was the leader of the cult of Kavalhaha, and I would be the first vessel of Rawlurah to cross over to our world and rise again. First they would have to cut out my soul for Rawlurah to claim my vessel as his own. All I could think about was defending my family, defending my world. Rawlurah would not have them. I fought back and got free. As I did, I felt something come upon me, something trying to stop me. It was Rawlurah himself, screaming into my head. I could barely stand. I was fighting with all my will to resist his, but how do you fight off the will of a god? I saw the dark ocean, and suddenly the moon was engulfed by darkness, just like Jedediah described. Rawlurah was coming. The cult of Kavalhaha were closing in on me. All I could think to do was climb on the ledge of the shrine and jump in the ocean. Before I jumped, Rawlurah appeared before me. Like an emerging dark cloud, he gazed upon me, and I screamed! With my last act, before I was paralyzed by fear, I took a leap of faith off the shrine into the dark ocean. Once entered, I tried swimming back to the surface, but I couldn't. I was kept down by something. I felt the life slipping from me in this pitch-black abyss. That was just fine by me. If I died like this, Rawlurah couldn't use my vessel to bring about everlasting fear to my world. The next thing I knew, I woke up outside the mine, my camera with me, and I got up and ran. I returned home as fast as I could, and spent how many sane moments I had left with my growing family. Rawlurah had gazed upon me for a short second, so sooner or later I will succumb to the fear and terror I experienced and suffer the same fate as Jedediah. Not a question of if, but when. Until then, I would live the rest of my life with my family and be grateful for every moment. It's funny. I both wish I heeded great-grandfather's warning, but also glad I could confirm his story. My father, Rodric Hillendale, did venture there, and according to his notes, he did venture into that mine. That much is confirmed. Still no photographs of the creature itself or the city of Kavalhaha. There's still not enough proof to prove the existence of Rawlurah. This drawing of the beast and city, impressive as it is, still not proof. According to my father, he never did told anyone of his research. So how could an alleged colleague of his know?